present episode 2 of Ashes to Ashford by Nigel Banks. In episode 1, Jimmy McIver receives a mysterious phone call from Reginald Thring, a solicitor, concerning the will of an old acquaintance of McIver's, Roger Sole. It emerges that Sole has left an unusual challenge in his will which he wishes McIver to take up. He is to dispose of Sole's ashes in 4 different locations. If he successfully carries out the mission, he stands to gain a substantial reward. Along with the help of his trusty sidekick Spud Murphy, he has managed to strew 2 of the 4 lots of Sole's ashes in the specified places. Jimmy McIver then discovers, to his consternation, that Mr. Thring is not answering his calls and his office is all shut up. Jimmy is left wondering whether he has been a victim of a huge practical joke.
So, I was in a bit of a quandary. I'd completed half the challenge old Roger'd set me, and now it looked as though it had all gone Pete Tong. Thring seemed to have disappeared off the face of the earth, and there was no sign of life at his office. I began to wonder if this was Sole's way of paying me back for all the times I'd let him down during our friendship. Part of me couldn't help admitting that I probably deserved it, and the other part felt it was rough justice. I mean, not only was I out of pocket to the tune of several £100, but the prospect of a big payout at the end of the challenge now looked like a non-starter. And then just as I was wondering how I was going to escape my creditors, things changed. I tried calling Thring's office again. Oh, it's ringing. No answer phone message this time. Come on, Thring, pick up. Oh, Mr. Thring, I've been trying to contact you for days. Where have you been?
Yes, terribly sorry about that. Been a bit of a flap on. I won't bore you with the details now. Can we come to the office tomorrow morning? Shall we say 11?
Yeah, OK.
Excellent. See you then. Goodbye.
Have a nice day yourself. What was all that about? Oh, I guess all will be revealed tomorrow.
Do come in, Mr. McIver, and take a seat. Good to see you again.
Likewise, I'm sure.
Yes, I really must apologise for my untimely absence recently. It couldn't be helped, I'm afraid. Family crisis. My brother died suddenly down in Plymouth. All the funeral arrangements fell on my shoulders, so I had to drop everything and get down there, I'm afraid.
Oh, right. Well, yeah, sorry for your loss and all that.
Not necessary. We weren't close, but as his next of kin, I had to deal with all the practical details.
Well, yeah, of course. Though I was surprised to find your office all closed up. Nobody minding the shop.
Ah, yes. My secretary was due to go on holiday anyway. My brother died suddenly, so there just wasn't time to arrange a temp. Anyway, normal service has now been resumed. So, I guess you'll be wanting to find out what challenge Mr. Sole has set you next.
Yeah, well, assuming, of course, that you think I provided convincing enough evidence that I carried out the second stage properly. There was a bit of a glitch with the actual depositing of the ashes, and with the weather turned nasty during the sailing, and my friend, Mr. Murphy, who came along to take the photos of me throwing the ashes overboard, was seasick just at the vital moment. And then the wind blew the ashes in his direction and sort of stuck on his coat.
So I see.
But I can assure you, some of old Roger's ashes did end up on the water near to Elsa Craig. I just couldn't get hold of the camera in time to take a photo. I got the tickets for the boat and the train up to Glasgow as proof that we did make the trip and all that.
I think, given all the logistical problems you faced, we can overlook the deficiencies and consider the second stage of the challenge duly accomplished.
Great. You're a diamond, Mr. T. So, where to next?
Dear Jimmy, if you're hearing this, it means you've successfully completed the first 2 stages of the quest. So far, my ashes have been deposited on the earth and on water.
For your next challenge, I want you to send my ashes into the air. In later life, I took up rambling, and now I don't mean I lost my marbles, I mean walking in the countryside. I had a problem with my heart, so the doctor recommended I take more exercise. Too little too late, as it turned out. My sedentary life and bad diet may well have brought on the cancer, which is going to do for me. So be warned, Jimmy. Cut out the booze, fags and high-fat diet while you still can, and you might make old bones. Anyway, at least I got to see some lovely bits of England's green and pleasant land on my country walks. One of my favourite ones was in the Wye Valley in Kent. You get wonderful views across the North Downs, and with a soundtrack of Vaughan Williams playing in your head, You really do have the quintessence of England. There's a particular landmark where I'd like you to launch my ashes. It's called the Y Crown. The shape of the monarch's crown was cut into the chalk of a hill above the village of Y to commemorate the coronation of Edward VII, and it's clearly visible for miles around. I've always loved firework displays, so I'd like you to send my ashes up with a rocket from the Y Crown on or around November the 5th. Good luck!
Oh, thanks, Rog. No pressure there, then. How on earth am I supposed to get his ashes up in a rocket?
Not my problem, I'm afraid. Where there's a will, there's a way. And since in this case the will in question could be very lucrative for you, I'm sure you will come up with a solution.
Ha ha ha. Hilarious. Well, all I could think of at the time was no way. And then blow me down, Spud comes up with a solution. By accident. We're strolling through the local park, discussing the problem while he's walking his dog.
Could you not, I don't know, sprinkle some of the ashes over the rocket before we send it up? A bit like you sprinkled them all over me when we were on that ruddy boat. Except without the vomit, of course.
Yeah, all right. I've said I'm sorry about that. And I did pay to have your coat dry cleaned. Anyway, I don't think Thring would let us get away with that trick a second time. We need to think of a way of attaching them to a rocket.
Oh, no. That means he's going to do his business. Mickey always barks to let me know. Good boy. I'll just deal with this. It's a bit of a faff, but I can appreciate the need. You don't want to be putting your feet in it. Some dog owners aren't so careful of dirty sods. So I always bring a few spare bags with me.
Can I look at that one?
Yeah, why? It's just a small plastic bag.
Well, it's quite strong, isn't it? Being plastic, it'd melt if heat were applied.
Nicky's poos aren't that hot, so I've never had that problem.
No, you twonk. I mean, if we were to put the ashes in a poo bag and tape it to the rocket...
Ah, I see.
Yeah, we are in business. Spud, you're a star. So, come November the 5th, there we are, up on the hillside above Y, as requested, with the biggest rocket I could buy. The flask containing the third lot of Roger's ashes and some of Spud's poo bags. Oh yeah, and a box of matches. Right, Spud, you hold one of the poo bags as wide open as you can and I'll pour the ashes in. There we go, easy does it. Oh, spilt a bit, sorry Rog. Some of you's gone on the ground, never mind. Most of you's in the bag. OK, Spud, tie the ends up, nice and carefully.
Ugh, I'm all fingers and thumbs.
Give it here then, I'll do it. Right, you take a photo of me holding the bag and then get the duct tape and wrap it round the rocket. OK, that should hold it. Now, we slot the rocket down the side of the post we so carefully sighted earlier today, and we're nearly there. Well, take another photo while you're at it. The more evidence we have, the better. Great. Got the matches?
Yup, in me pocket.
Right. I'll retire to a safe distance with camera at the ready while you do the honours.
Honours?
OK, Spud, whenever you're ready.
Oh, sugar. Match has gone out. That's more like it. There we go. Bombs away!
Is the fuse lit?
I think so.
Well, it should have gone up by now. Don't say we got a dud. I'd have bought a backup, but I didn't have enough money.
What are we going to do?
I'll have to go back and take a closer look.
Is that wise?
No other option. Wish me luck.
I've got me fingers crossed for you. And me toes.
Ah!
Jimmy, are you all right? Talk to me, Jimmy.
I was fine. Fortunately, I landed on my back when I fell, so I was able to fire off a couple of camera shots up into the sky. I had no idea if I'd managed to capture the rocket fizzing upwards, taking Roger's ashes with it, or whether the photos would be good enough to convince Thring that we'd actually done the job. But then, as I lay looking up at the heavens with the sound of the fireworks going off in the distance, and the starbursts and cascades of glittering pyrotechnics lighting up the evening sky, it didn't seem to matter anymore. I had a sort of, what do you call it, epiphany. A moment when I kind of got what old Rog was trying to achieve with this whole Ashes project. The money I stood to get if I completed the quest wasn't important now. It was about doing a favour for a mate who's always stood by me and seeing something through to the end for once in my life. And then I hear this pitter-patter in the air, like rain falling, and I realise it's Roger's ashes coming back down to earth. And it makes me so happy, I start laughing.
Jimmy! What's up?
Well, we did it, and I'm a happy man, aren't you?
No, I'm not. I got a bloody cinder in me eye. It's not bloody funny. I could have been blinded.
Needless to say, after a couple of pints of Guinness and whiskey chasers in the local pub, Spud was fine, and we returned to London in high spirits. I reported back to Mr. Thring the very next day with the empty flask and the camera containing the photographic evidence.
Well, Mr. McIver, you seem to have given the third lot of Mr. Soul's ashes a dramatic send-off. Some of your photos are a little out of focus, to say the least.
Yeah, I had a bit of a slip-up just as I was about to press the button. Ground was uneven.
Still, all told, I think there's sufficient corroborative evidence here to substantiate that the deed was carried out as claimed.
Excellent news.
Tell me, out of interest, how did you manage to attach the ashes to the rocket?
Oh, it was easy. Put them in a doggie's doo-doo bag and taped it to the rocket. The heat from the rocket melted the plastic, and so the ashes all got dispersed into the air before falling back down to Earth as planned.
Ingenious. So, we'd better see where you're off to next with the fourth and final lot of ashes. Dear Jimmy, if you're hearing this, it means you have successfully completed 3 stages of the challenge. Only one more to go, and then you can collect your reward. I would love to know how you got my ashes up in a rocket. If I believed in life after death, I'd know. But I don't, so I won't. I just hope you had some fun along the way, because one thing I do know is you've got to make the most of the thrill of being alive while you still can. Treasure it, Jimmy, because it doesn't last forever.
Well, he obviously got philosophical in his old age.
I suppose being diagnosed with a terminal condition does tend to bring on intimations of mortality. He goes on to say, for your final challenge, I need you to deposit my ashes in the fourth element, fire.
No doubt you'll be thinking that's a bit of a nonsense, as my body will have already been through fire during the cremation process. So what I'm asking you to do is more of a symbolic gesture. Where better to deposit the ashes from the fourth flask but in the mouth of the most potent symbol of fire on this earth, a volcano. Now, since we don't have any volcanoes in this country, you're going to get the chance to travel abroad. So I hope you've got a valid passport. If not, you'd better get yourself one pronto. That's why I'm giving you a bit more leeway with this one. I'd like you to have completed this leg of the challenge by March 31st. I'm sure you'll be wondering where in the world I'm going to send you. South America, New Zealand, or maybe Iceland. I don't know if you've travelled much yourself, Jimmy. I remember we both went on that school exchange trip to France when we were kids, but that doesn't really count. They say travel broadens the mind, but I think that depends on who's doing the travelling. Some of the most travelled people I've met might as well have stayed at home for all the good it's done them in terms of opening their eyes to different cultures, wider horizons, other possibilities. I discovered Italy when I was in my 20s and fell in love with the country. The English have been having a love affair with the place for centuries. Apart from the obvious, the climate, the history, the art, the food and the wine, what have the Romans ever done for us and all that? It's the style. We envy their style. You'd be hard-pressed to find an Italian who ever wanted to be born English. They'd die of embarrassment. Whereas I'd love to have been born an Italian. But it wasn't to be. I did think seriously about going to live there permanently at one stage, but it would have been too complicated. So I did the next best thing and visited the country as often as I could. As you're probably aware, Italy has a few volcanoes, Stromboli, Etna, and of course the daddy of them all, Vesuvius. So I would like you to tip my ashes into the mouth of the crater of Mount Vesuvius near Naples. That really will be a case of ashes to ashes. The local saying is, see Naples and die. When you hear this, I'll have done both those, but I'm assuming you haven't as yet, Jimmy. So have some real fun with this challenge and see a bit more of this wonderful world while you're at it. Buon viaggio e buona fortuna. See you, Jimmy.
Well, thanks a million, Rog. Vesuvius? Now that sounds mega dangerous.
Not really. There hasn't been a proper eruption for over 70 years, I believe. It's still active and will erupt again at some point, but I think you'll be pretty safe.
Well, that's something. But Italy? I've never been there. I don't speak the lingo. How am I going to get to the top of Vesuvius?
I'm sorry, Mr. McIver. You're just going to have to find out those answers for yourself. But I'm sure Mr. Google will be able to help again. So, till we meet again, let me wish you an early Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Arrivederci, as I believe they say in Italy.
Yeah, ciao, baby, to you too. As you can imagine, Roger's final challenge was really taking things to a new level. I could see what he was trying to do, though, the cunning old bugger. He knew that having come this far, I wasn't going to throw in the towel now. It definitely wasn't about the money anymore. It was about something deeper. If I were to pop my clogs at the same age as Rog, it meant I only had another couple of years left. What would be my epitaph? He frittered his life away. Or he gambled and he lost. I never used to have much truck with people who talked about having a midlife crisis, but now I began to understand what it meant. But more immediately, however, I needed to tackle the logistics of getting Roger's ashes to Mount Vesuvius. Not for the first time, help was on hand from an unlikely source, Spud Murphy. Usual, Fred, and a pint of Guinness for Mr. Murphy, please.
Coming up. Thanks, Jimmy. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
Your good health, Spud. So, as I was saying, I'm a bit stuck on the next leg of my challenge. Mount Vesuvius. I don't know how I'm going to pull that one off.
I've been there. It should be easy.
Well, I mean, I don't speak Italian. I don't know the way around. You what?
I said I've been there. It'll be easy.
When did you go to Italy? You've rarely stepped foot outside Kilburn since I've known you. You got the jitters when we went to Ashford, and then we crossed the border into Scotland. I thought you were going to have a heart attack.
It was when I was in the seminary. The Jesuits organised this trip to Rome to see the Vatican and all that. And then they took us on to Naples so we could see round Pompeii and then trek all the way up Vesuvius. A secular pilgrimage, they called it, to see the hand of God in the landscape. I just remember it being hot and dusty with not much to see except the end of it, except this big old crater. I mean, the thing's been dormant since 1944, but it's easy enough to get to. Catch a bus or get a taxi from Naples. It'll take you part of the way up, and then the rest is on foot. It's a bit of a hike, but not too steep.
You never cease to amaze me, Spud. You in a seminary. So how come you didn't end up as a priest?
I couldn't be doing with all that mumbo-jumbo. It was only 'cause me mammy was desperate for one of her 5 sons to be a priest. I was the one with the memory, so I could learn all that holy stuff dead easy. She was in cahoots with Father Mulcahy, our local priest, and so I was packed off to the seminary without a say in the matter. Those Jesuit priests, though, they were something else. You wouldn't believe some of the stuff they got up to behind closed doors. So, I ran away in the end, hopped on a ferry and ended up over here.
Well, the clergy's loss is our gain.
Oh, very funny. Me mammy never spoke to me again. I was ostracised, or whatever the word is, for bringing shame and disgrace on the family name.
So you've never been back to Ireland, then?
Nope. Missed me mammy's funeral. I wanted to go, but I was broke at the time, so I couldn't afford a fare.
Well, couldn't one of your brothers have coughed up the money? Family occasion and all that.
Them? They wouldn't give me the time of day. I'm the black sheep, so I wouldn't have been welcome. I sent a card, but I didn't even get a reply. I've had the odd letter from Frankie since. He's the youngest of my brothers, so he was too small to know what was going on when I absconded from the seminary. He doesn't bear a grudge like the others.
Only child, me. I only had to deal with my brothers and sisters.
Yeah, you were spoilt rotten by your mammy. You still are.
Look, I can't help it if she still thinks the sun shines out of my backside. But seriously, though, doing this challenge of Roger's has really set me thinking. He had no surviving family to mourn him. Old Thring told me there was only him, a cleaning lady, and a few friends from the golf club at his funeral. I probably wouldn't even manage that if I were to pop off tomorrow.
Well, I'd be there.
Yeah, only because of the free booze and food afterwards.
No, I'd miss you.
You're all heart. Anyway, it's a pity you can't come with me on this trip, as I could use your local knowledge. But I've only just got enough dough for my own airfare and expenses.
No, you're all right. I don't have especially fond memories of the place, so I'm not bursting to go there again. Just send me a postcard.
So I did some investigating on the interweb, as advised by Mr. Thring, and got myself a cheap return flight to Naples for just over 80 quid, and 3 nights in a hotel in the centre of the city for another 100. Pretty good value, I thought. But it meant I'd just about maxed out my credit card. Still, speculate to accumulate, as they say. And truth be told, I was quite looking forward to the adventure of going somewhere completely new. Come the day, March 7th, I'll get myself to Gatwick in good time to check in for the flight. 1 small suitcase and my trusty holdall containing the flask with Roger's ashes, which I'm going to keep with me as hand luggage. That was the plan anyway. But then I get to the security checkpoint.
Put your bag in the plastic box, please, sir, along with any electronic devices, coins and keys.
Right.
And the belt from your trousers, please, sir.
What? My strides will fall down. Are you some kind of perv?
Oh, yeah, the sight of your hairy legs will give me a cheap thrill. No, sir, the metal buckle on your belt will set off the sensor on the walk-through screening machine.
Oh, I see. Sorry, mate. I've not done any flying for years.
Yes, it's a bit of a pain, I know, sir, but given the way things are in the world these days, we have to carry out these checks. Now, if you'd like to walk through the machine, and then one of my colleagues will carry out a body search.
Toe the line, please, sir, while I carry out the body check. I'm sorry, sir. Would you mind accompanying me? I'd just like to ask you a few questions.
What? What's going on?
Just step this way, please, sir.
Come in. Please take a seat.
I don't understand. Why am I here?
Can I see your passport, please, sir? You are Mr. James McIver?
Yes.
What is your destination?
Naples?
In Italy?
No, I thought I'd like to go to the one in out of Mongolia.
It's not a good idea to be clever with me, Mr. McIver. Not if you want to stand any chance of reaching your destination.
Sorry. Yes, Naples in Italy.
Is this your piece of hand luggage?
Yes.
Did you pack it yourself?
Of course.
In that case, would you mind telling me what is contained inside this metal flask?
Oh, that. Well, that's a bit difficult to explain
Without what, Mr. McIver?
Without you getting hold of the wrong end of the stick.
And why might I be likely to do that?
Well, you see, it's not what it seems like.
In that case, we'd better have a look at what's inside. Then I can decide what it seems like. It's got a seal round the neck. That's unusual. Interesting. Tell me, Mr. McIver, what is the purpose of your visit to Naples?
It's, personal.
I bet it is. Meeting someone there, are you? I'd lay odds he's called Luigi or Franco and he's connected to the Camorra.
The what?
The Neapolitan version of the mafia, as I'm sure you're aware. Making a delivery of Class A drugs to your Italian colleagues, were we?
No, that's not drugs. Cool. No wonder you lot don't have much success catching drug smugglers if you can't even
recognise what, Mr. McIver?
Ashes.
Ashes? Why on earth would you want to take ashes from a fire all the way to Italy? Is this some new sort of fetish of which I've been previously unaware?
No, not that sort of ashes. Well, human ones, remains.
Ah, now I get it. You've carried out a hit for your Camorra Capo and are bringing him a memento mori as proof.
You are joking. Do I look like a professional assassin? Now, the truth, it's a bit complicated. I think the best person to explain it to is this guy. This is his card. He's a solicitor. If you give him a call, he'll tell all.
Reginald Thring, solicitor. That name rings a bell. I think my sister used him in her divorce case. Spoke highly of him. Wait here, Mr. McIver, while I go and make the call.
Lucky for me, Thring backs up my story. So I'm hoping the security lot will let me go so I can catch my flight in time. But it wasn't that straightforward. So now that's all been cleared up, can I go now?
I'm afraid not, Mr. McIver.
Oh, what's the problem now?
Well, you're certainly free to leave this room, but not with the ashes, I'm afraid. And according to Mr. Thring, they represent the sole purpose of your journey. So there's not much point in your catching that plane to Naples.
But why can't I take the ashes?
If you bothered to research the topic properly, you'd have discovered that the Home Office lays down very strict regulations about the export of deceased corpses, all their remains. There are very precise protocols to be followed, and a whole raft of official forms to be completed, none of which, I fear, you have in your possession.
Typical.
Yes, I know. Red tape, eh? The bane of the bureaucrat's life.
So that's it then. Fallen at the final hurdle. I'll never get my reward now.
Yes, Mr. Thring was a trifle indiscreet and happened to mention that there's a financial incentive attached to this undertaking, if you'll excuse the pun. The deceased gentleman, whose ashes are contained inside this metal flask, was quite wealthy, I believe.
Yeah, and he had no family to leave his money to, so it'll all go to charity now.
What a waste. Still, that's the way it goes.
Yep, story of my life.
Pity. On the other hand...
On the other hand, what?
I've taken rather a shine to you, Mr. McIver. Or may I call you James?
Well, it's Jimmy. It's my friends.
Well, Jimmy, I think we might be able to come to a mutually satisfactory arrangement over this matter.
Do what? Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting?
You know, one thing I've always admired about Italian officials is their openness to financial inducements when in Rome, or in this case, Naples. What do you say, Jimmy?
A backhander?
Shh. Let's just keep this between ourselves. I was thinking in terms of...
Who'd have thought it, eh? Miss Alice Radley, Senior Customs and Immigration Officer, offering to accept a bribe so I can body swerve all that red tape and take old Roger's ashes to Naples. I did tell her that getting the ashes to Naples was only the first step, and then I had to get them to the top of Vesuvius, chuck them in a crater, persuade someone to take a photograph of me doing it before reporting back to old Thring with the evidence. This was no walk in the park. But it didn't seem to bother her. I do like a bit of a flutter, she said. Woman after me own art. So I get to Naples, check into the hotel, no bother. Fortunately, the receptionist speaks English, and he helps me sort out the trip to Vesuvius. The day I went up to the volcano, the weather was bright, clear, and not too hot. There's a bit of a breeze blowing, but when I get to the top, after what happened last time, I make darn sure I know which direction it's going in, so I don't get covered in the ashes when I empty them out of the flask. But the next problem is finding someone to take a photo of me doing the deed, as I didn't have Spud with me this time. Luckily, there's a school party ahead of me, and I catch the sound of English voices, so I seek out one of the teachers and make my pitch. Excuse me, are you English?
I'm Anna King, Head of Geography at Abbotsford High School. We're on the annual European field trip. Carry on, folks. I'll catch you up later. How can I help? My Italian's very limited, I'm afraid, if you're looking for a translator.
No, it's not that. I wonder if you could do me a favour. It's a bit of a strange request, but I promise you it's nothing illegal.
Well, this is a novel experience for me. Being propositioned on top of a mountain.
No. It's nothing like that, honest. No, what it is, I wonder if you wouldn't mind taking a photo of me tipping the contents of this flask here into the crater.
You can't do that. This is a site of special scientific interest. You can't go round dropping waste products into the crater of Mount Vesuvius.
No, you don't understand. It's not a waste product. Well, not in the way you're thinking. Inside this flask are some of the ashes of a friend of mine who loved Italy and left a request in his will that they be dropped into the crater here. I'm just carrying out his wishes, that's all.
Oh, that's gross. How could you agree to something so macabre? No, I don't want anything to do with that. Thank you very much.
Fair enough. That's your prerogative. But I'd just like to say that I think that's a very narrow-minded and judgmental viewpoint. My late friend Roger asked that his ashes be deposited in 4 different places, which had special significance for him. I've already done 3 of them, and this is the last. I've spread him on the earth in Ashford, the sea in Scotland, and in the air over Wye in Kent. But he wanted the 4th lot to be spread in a place associated with fire, so that's why I've come here.
Very laudable of you, I'm sure. But I still think it's grotesque.
Why? I mean, it's what we all come down to in the end. We're just a collection of atoms. What's wrong with reuniting his dust with the dust in a volcano?
I know it's become very fashionable for people to want their ashes spreading in places that were special to them. But I just think it's yet another example of selfishness and disregard for the environment. We have designated places for these things. Crematoria. That's where they belong.
Well, I can see we're just going to have to disagree on this one. But before I tip my friend Roger's ashes into the crater here, let me ask you one thing. What's your position on landfill sites? I mean, do you get as worked up about the millions of tons of rubbish we bury in the earth every day? I mean, not exactly environmentally friendly, eh? Strikes me that's selfishness and disregard on a grand scale. I'm just saying, like.
That's a completely different issue.
Yeah, tell it to the judge.
No need to be offensive.
Offensive? Listen, lady, if I was being really offensive, you'd know about it, you smug bint.
How dare you? I've a good mind to report you to the authorities.
The authorities? Have you heard yourself? We're on top of a bloody mountain. There's no authorities here.
Is everything all right, Mrs. King? Is this man bothering you?
It's okay, Mr. Booth. I can handle this.
Oh, cavalry to the rescue, is it? Fancy your chances, do you, chum?
Now look here, chum. I suggest you calm down and behave sensibly.
Calm down and behave sensibly. I'm not one of your pupils, so shove it.
Stop it, you two! Mr. Booth! Clive!
Oh, you...
Don't! Oh, this is most embarrassing.
Get off of it.
Not in front of the students.
Oh, now look what you've gone and done, you stupid prat. Oh, that's torn it. So, that seemed to be that. I'd failed. I mean, yeah, Roger's ashes had ended up, or down, should I say, in the crater of Vesuvius. But I had no photographic proof. I leant over the edge and took a few shots, but you couldn't see any sign of the flask. By the time I got back home, I'd become a bit more laid back about the whole thing. I mean, the money would have been great, don't get me wrong, but what mattered more was seeing Roger's challenge through to the end and not bailing out when things went tits up. I guess I also owed Spud a few more drinks for his part in my great adventure. Most importantly, I learned a few lessons about what really counts in life. And in a strange way, I'd got to know more about my old friend Roger Soul in death than I ever had when he was alive. I allowed myself a couple of days to relax, and then I went to report back to Thring.
There's not really any definite visual proof that the ashes ended up in the actual mouth of the crater as stipulated, is there?
Yeah, I know, but as I explained, Mr. Thring, there were extenuating circumstances.
So you say. But let's be honest, Jimmy. I let you off with less than perfect photographic evidence with the 2nd and 3rd stages of the quest. It would have been within my rights to have disqualified you then.
OK. Guilty as charged. You know, in a way, I'm relieved.
Why?
Well, the more I got involved with the whole caper, the less important the reward became. It was more about wanting to see the thing through to the end. You know, to carry out Roger's wishes and feel as though I'd actually achieved something worthwhile for a change.
Very touching. However, I think we both deserve something more tangible for our efforts.
How do you mean?
I handled Soul's legal matters for over 20 years, and yes, I was reasonably well paid for my labour. But I'd like to retire early and be able to enjoy myself. Who knows how long we have left? So, what say I rubber stamp your completion of the challenge, and in return, you'll give me a percentage of the reward? I was thinking in terms of...
So, old Thring proved to be as open to the temptation of filthy lucre as the rest of us. We're still waiting for probate to be granted, so I still don't know exactly how much I'll get after Thring has taken his cut. But it should be a tidy sum. I did persuade him to let me have an advance, as I had shelled out a considerable amount on travel and accommodation expenses along the way. And then I booked myself a holiday here in Barbados. Well, I figure I've earned myself some chillax time after all I've been through.
Babe,
Yes, my sweet.
my glass is empty. Another one of those daiquiris, please. Mwah.
Coming right up, Treacle. Yeah, I know. Who'd have thought it, eh? Me and Alice Radley, a respectable officer of HM Customs and Immigration Service. But I felt there was a spark between us when we first met at the airport. Well, if it works out for us, I'm going to take her to Italy next. She's never been. I think old Rog would approve. Here's your drink, babe. Cheers.
In episode 2 of Ashes to Ashford by Nigel Banks, the role of Jimmy McIver was played by Mike Ravano, Spud Murphy by Mike Ayres, Reginald Thring by Nigel Banks, Alice Radley by Jane Pawford, and Roger Soul by Jim Newbury. All other parts were played by members of the cast, and sound and editing were done by Robbie Burgess. The play was produced by Nigel Banks, and this was an Old Dolly production.